Heart disease runs in my family, and statins, most doctors recommend them, and for good reason. They are very effective at lowering cholesterol and saving lives. But here's the thing. Statins are not always the best choice or full answer. And I learned this the hard way after years of doing everything right and still seeing my cholesterol numbers refusing to budge. As it turns out, there is a good reason for this, one that requires some creative approaches. And it's something many people, including doctors and insurance companies, often ignore. So let's unpack all that. I watched my dad change forever after his heart surgery. He survived, sure, but he wasn't living either. And what's ironic, the expensive part of the surgery actually went pretty well. His valves were changed without opening the chest up, all through the vein, which is bloody amazing. But it kind of went downhill when his bladder got perforated during the recovery by a less skillful nurse. And we got bleeding, infection, inflammation, and he never really got back. But could we unwind it all and do something different? A long time before that surgery, I asked my dad if he wanted to try to improve his health while it's not too late. Cut on desserts, go for a walk now and then, take some medicine. I've never done it in my life, and I'm not going to start now, he replied. And he just let his genes and lifestyle write the story, something which haunted me for years. Now, that same genetic legacy runs through my blood too. But here's the thing, I refuse to repeat the same mistakes. And what I discovered through the years of research completely changed how I see cholesterol and statins, and that's why they are so close to my heart, literally. And maybe it'll change your perspective too if you are on the edge. So as I said, heart disease runs in my family like clockwork. My dad had it, my mom too. I inherited their genes, their risks, and apparently their cholesterol, which, as we discussed in the previous video, can significantly reduce your life, quality of life, and how long you live. What was 4-day average turns into years and years of life. So, like any slightly obsessive engineer with a knack for overthinking, I decided to do something about it, and not just something, everything. I read every label, counted every step, tried every trick, food, exercise, more fiber, less saturated fat. Maybe saw my experiment with different coffees, because they can have quite an effect too. Did you know that? But despite all the above and multiple years of experiments, my cholesterol numbers barely moved. Maybe got a little better, but nothing to write home about. Have you ever had that moment when you're doing everything right and it still feels like you're losing? So was me. And then, on top of all of that, I got my genetic test results back. 𝐒𝐸4 mutation, and if you don't know, that's like getting dealt the worst possible hand when it comes to heart disease and dementia. At least my high cholesterol numbers started to make some sense, except of course nothing was helping. So here come statins. They are supposed to do two things: decrease the production of cholesterol in the liver and increase the clearance, flushing out of cholesterol from the body. Almost like, what's that luxury brand? Burberry. Producing less and destroying what they couldn't sell to upkeep the exclusivity. What was really surprising, and I spent quite some time digging, I couldn't find any human studies that directly measure the production of cholesterol and how statins affect that. because we usually measure precursors, the ingredients cholesterol is made from. Here's one very interesting study in mice, unfortunately. Always remember, mice are not human. That showed actually an increased production of cholesterol on statins. Cholesterol synthesis in vivo, it means in the body, is mainly estimated via surrogate biomarkers, all those ingredients like salt, sugar, and flour, and indeed been shown to decrease in statin-treated patients. But more direct measurements of cholesterol synthesis, the baked cakes, yielded controversial results. So it's actually possible that statins slightly increase the production of cholesterol, but also increase its removal from the body by much higher degrees. So the net result is positive, or might be positive. Apparently, doesn't work the same for everyone. But what I've learned here, and something you should be aware as well, there is a way to measure these cholesterol ingredients, which can show you in detail what's going on inside of you. It might get a little technical, but for example, we have pretty solid evidence that cholesterol reduction doesn't cause any dementia and actually helps with some types. But the ratio of one of those cholesterol ingredients, this mosterol, might be linked to Alzheimer. That's new and somewhat conflicting research, but I will update you when we get something new. But the bottom line, cholesterol balance is something to look for, and for multiple reasons, which we'll show in a second. As it turns out, there is a lab in Boston almost next door to me, which does exactly that, the balance test. So if you don't know me yet, I just couldn't say no. And here's my results. Turns out my liver is doing amazing. See where it says production? All the exercises and diet, they do their job pretty well. I don't need any statins after all, or maybe just a little bit in a somewhat unusual way. But my gut, on the other hand, has a different opinion. It's basically acting like a revolving door for cholesterol. Every time my liver tries to flush it out, it just pushes it back. And that's the real cause of the problem. That's why nothing worked for me. Good news, there is a drug which is perfectly suited to deal with this condition called Nexzlizet. Bad news, it's expensive, and my insurance basically said, fuck you, not covered. Because of course they would. So what to do? My old primary care wasn't versed in lipidology all too well. The new one isn't either, but at least she's open to experiments. And that's what we decided to try a few months ago. Nexzlizet is a combination drug. One part, Ezetimibe, which works as a bouncer at the door and doesn't let too much cholesterol back into the blood. It helps to reduce the reabsorption plus cholesterol from all the eggs I eat on a daily basis. It's generally accepted that dietary cholesterol doesn't play much of a role on average, but in some cases like mine, and maybe yours, it does. The second part is bempedoic acid, a non-statin which reduces cholesterol production. We needed to deal with compensation. When you get less cholesterol through the gut, the liver decides to return things back to normal, make atherosclerosis great again, and produces more. That's when you need to push on the liver side a little bit. So until bempedoic acid goes generic and you can buy it for pennies like Ezetimibe in Mark Cuban's pharmacy, I just take a microdose of Crestor. I just split it in half to like 2.5 milligrams. Tiny dose. And you know what? It worked. My numbers finally started to move in the right direction. But much more importantly, I felt like I was finally in control and was actually addressing the root cause. You can call it mental health, you can call it placebo, you can call it living with intent, but it's important. Maybe even more important than some reduction of numbers on paper. It took me some time to forgive my dad for his decisions, but it's also taught me this. We don't have to accept the hand we are dealt. You don't have to say, well, genetics. You can ask questions, push for more tests, and refuse to settle for good enough. If you're not seeing the results you want, keep digging, advocate for yourself. Your solution might not be the standard one, and that's okay, we are all made different. But remember, it's your story and you get to decide how it ends. We are all made different, but what we do have in common, I hope, is the desire to get better. For me, in this particular case, the answer was a microdose of statin combined with ezetimibe. For you, it might be something else. But the key is to understand your body. Continuous education is the major pillar of longevity because when it comes to your health, average is not an option. So, if you're curious about how cholesterol actually damages your arteries or why I am so obsessed with ApoB and what other tools we have, but not always using, to prevent heart disease and dementia, check out this video right here. Living is smart, aging is bad, and I'll see you there.